Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessy Antony de Nassau. Today, I have the most wonderful pleasure to introduce a dear friend and fellow Luxembourg innovator and game changer, Nasir. Nasir Zubairi is well known in Luxembourg and has really shaken up things, if I can put it like that. But we will get into more of the details about this in a minute, after I tell you in a nutshell what he has been up to. So Nasir, he is the CEO of the LHoFT Foundation, a public-private sector initiative to drive fintech and digitalization for Luxembourg's financial service industry. He is the non-executive director board member at SEBSA, or he was as well, finance and technology high-level advisory board member at the IMF, blockchain expert policy advisor at the OECD, and honorary research fellow at University College London, also known as UCL. Dear Nasir, it is such a pleasure to have you with us today. I know you're very busy, so thank you for making time.
Thank you for having me, Tessy. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Such a pleasure as well. So Nasir, there's so many topics. How about we start about you personally, very briefly, where you're from and how did you end up in the beautiful modern fairy tale that we all love, Luxembourg?
Oh, okay. I'll try and keep this concise. So I was brought up in London. My parentage was, my father was Pakistani, my mother was Polish. I studied in London. I didn't actually leave London much at all, even for vacations, until I started work. I entered banking like a lot of my compatriots at university. I went to the London School of Economics, which was tailored for the finance sector in London. But in, I think it was 2001, I was asked to move to New York, and that kind of began a journey of mine to live all over the world. I've now lived and worked in 8 countries around the world. Luxembourg is now the longest I've spent in any country in the past 25 years, and I'm very happy here. I call this home for now and hopefully for the foreseeable future. And I came here originally, actually, the first time I ever came to Luxembourg was I was invited to speak at one of the big conferences here, ICT Spring. And I was just amazed at how down-to-earth, open, and eager and enthusiastic the people were that I met here. There were no airs and graces, so to speak. I was talking with CEOs of banks, with politicians, with ministers, and they were just normal people. And all of them were keen to expand their horizons and to see how they could do better for Luxembourg. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was just very, very impressed. But then I sort of was discussing with my wife at the time about, coming together as a family. At that time, my wife and my children were in Brussels. She worked at the EC while I was commuting from Berlin, where I was a founder of a large company builder there, where we'd set up a number of fintech companies. But I really realized, particularly after the death of my parents, how important family was, and that I was really missing, being around my children particularly. And so we started thinking of how we could be together. The obvious choice was to move back to London. But then I kind of mentioned Luxembourg. I said I thought there were lots of opportunities for me in Luxembourg. I had some ideas as to what to do there. She happened to mention that the EIB had taken some interest in her, so she contacted them, and to cut a long story short, we both ended up here. I came originally to set up a bank. We had just set up a bank in Germany called Solaris Bank, and I saw the opportunity to do a similar thing here in Luxembourg, specifically for the investment fund sector. But then again, with the huge openness and community spirit of Luxembourg, I began meeting a lot of people and started working on this concept of the LHoFT with Luxembourg for Finance and Nicola Miquel and with the ministry. And lo and behold, I ended up setting it up and taking charge of it in the end of 2016, and I've been running it ever since.
Wow, that's fantastic. I could listen to your CV forever. It is so inspirational, and it gives me so much pride to see how non-Luxembourgers talk about Luxembourg, because it is absolutely what you're describing it to be. It is really an innovative country with human beings who are just so open and eager for change and for collaboration and for innovation and for newness, right? Just to see what can we do next. And so yeah, Luxembourg is definitely the place to be. Also now at the moment, it's a small country, and the implementation as well of new projects, also when you look at it in the administration way and the policy way, is so much shorter compared to, for example, London, which both of us have called home as well. I'm in Zurich now, but I have as well lived for myself 12 years in London, and I do understand that they're the politicians and big business owners. You cannot just invite them to an event and they would not even show up. In Luxembourg, they really are interested, and they're not sending their secretary or administrative person. They really come themselves. So before we dive into the LHoFT more in Luxembourg, and also specifically about your work in Luxembourg, I would love to hear, just because I'm a very big blockchain geek as well, and so is my partner Frank, and also he's very much into crypto and all of these things as you are. And tell me about your work with the IMF as well, and also with other institutions that you're doing, and why do you think, or what do you think actually of blockchain, and what can we do within that space as well in Luxembourg? Because I do know that you are organizing now one of the really first conferences I know of the status and grandness within that space, where also the Minister of Finance is attending, and everything to really talk about new innovative ways of finance for Luxembourg. And blockchain is also, and crypto are topics of that as well. So tell me a little bit about it. What is your ambition within that field, and how do you see that implementation being able or happening in Luxembourg with the financial industry that we're having, which actually made as well, other than the metal industry, the wealth of Luxembourg? Is there a chance? Do you think it's the time is right now? And how has been the feedback so far for you by introducing topics like that?
Yes, I mean, the time is now. Luxembourg's financial services sector has thrived principally because it was a first mover in a number of areas over the past 10, 20 years. You know, the first to adopt the UCITS directive to offer retail funds on a global scale, and is the #1 center for those. The first with the Green Exchange more recently, and in many ways, and the Payment Services Directive, which led to the likes of Amazon Payments, PayPal, etc., also setting up home in Luxembourg. So being a first mover and being innovative and agile has helped to develop Luxembourg into, well, now the EU's leading financial services center. And that's really incredible when you think it's a country of just 600,000 people. The time for blockchain is now. I mean, I can debate with anyone, and I'd love to discuss it with your partner, Frank. I have to admit, for a long time, I was not a fan of blockchain. I had, in my early part of my career, worked extensively on distributed ledger systems, and so I have some understanding of that. I'm not a techie, but I do understand technology. I always felt that blockchain was a technology looking for a problem to solve. People were trying to sell their solutions by just saying it's blockchain, which was, you know, just supposed to create some magic, rather than focusing on, you know, the needs or problems of individuals or their customers in terms of trying to solve that problem, and then explaining why blockchain should be the best way to solve that problem. Most people don't really care about the underlying technology as long as it's safe and secure, and you know, issues don't occur with it. However, there has been a number of key milestones over the past 2-3 years in particular that I think have sort of jump-started the interest in blockchain. And unfathomably, well, unconditionally, the announcement by Facebook a few years ago of their Libra project really drew everyone's attention to blockchain, to tokenization, and also expanded the interest in crypto. That's when a lot of the talk around central bank digital currencies started occurring. And now you see Christine Lagarde, who's always been a fan of blockchain. As I say, I used to sit on her steering committee at the IMF. She chaired that steering group and was a huge proponent of blockchain, was running a number of experiments within the IMF related to blockchain. It was almost inevitable that she would drive forward a project such as central bank digital currency and the digital euro, as it's being called at the ECB. And this has all really been catalyzed by Bitcoin, ultimately. So regardless of what people think of Bitcoin, Bitcoin has led to incredible innovation that has come to market and is going to come to market in the financial service sector. Now, Luxembourg needs to embrace this technology because one critical element of blockchain that I genuinely believe is of value to the markets and to the financial service sector is the tokenization element in terms of how it can reduce costs, particularly within the securities industry. And the securities industry is core to Luxembourg because it underpins the investment fund industry. And if this is increasingly being adopted and by investors, and they are asking to invest in crypto or to invest in new asset classes that are being enabled by tokens, for example, part ownership in real estate is made much simpler through tokenization. I mean, not many people these days, particularly younger people, can afford to buy housing. And unless you jump on the bandwagon and get some exposure to housing, wherever it may be, Luxembourg or London or wherever, you're going to never catch up in order to be able to afford your own property. One way to do that is to own a small share in a property, right? And tokens enable that. Tokenization of art, tokenization of diamond mines, tokenizations of boats, any sort of asset can now be tokenized relatively cheaply, relatively easily, providing alternative investment options to investors that are hungry for alternatives, because right now the only place money is going is the US stock market, right? Which to me is a fake high because it's not really reflective of the global economic situation given what we've just been through in COVID. But it's being driven by demand, right? I mean, if you've got trillions of dollars worldwide that need to be held in assets, such as through pension funds, it's all going into the US market. So we need alternatives, and tokens are there to enable that. And Luxembourg needs to, and the institutions in Luxembourg really need to start adopting the technology and understanding it and implementing it so that they can remain at the forefront of the investment fund industry for years to come.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And I think it's a really, really important topic. Specifically, yeah, no, I think you said it really, really well. And I think my partner as well with the tokenization, you know, market making and everything, it's coming up more and more. And you are, again, leading by example with organizing these roundtables or creating these platforms of dialogue and communication where people can really come together and talk about these changes and understand the changes, because I think where the understanding is lacking, that's when criticism comes and other problems. And one of your conferences coming up now is as well with the Minister of Finance, as I said, of Luxembourg. You have certain heads of banks of Canada, if I'm not mistaken, and others. And I think it's fantastic. So also for the people listening in, please make sure you go and check out LHoFT Luxembourg.
Tessy, if I may, the conference just happened last week. Oh. You just missed it.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, that was fast. I'm sorry. Okay.
It was fast. No, actually, what we have done is working with a variety of different actors. And just as a sort of interlude, collaboration is the real key USP of Luxembourg. It is all about community. I mean, it's bringing together the various actors from across different sectors, from across government, from lawyers, regulators, bankers, fintech firms, and working together to achieve things. I have never seen anything like this before anywhere. Luxembourg Blockchain Week occurred last week. We, as well as several other actors such as the S&T and the LIST, the research institutes, the Blockchain Association, Let's Block, and Infrachain, which is a sort of national government initiative around blockchain in Luxembourg, have come together to set up the Blockchain Lab, which is I host in my facility here, because I believe that we have to move forward, and having a dedicated platform specifically to blockchain, leveraging what I believe is the incredible talent we already have in Luxembourg around blockchain, to really help the community, help the industry to develop their solutions, develop their education and learning, and to bring in the right talent to Luxembourg is absolutely critical to ensure that not just financial services, but government services, health services. We have projects in the blockchain lab related to sustainability. So blockchain can be utilized in a variety of forms, and that lab is really the focal point now for developing these initiatives in Luxembourg.
Well, that's fantastic. If there's a report that you publish on the conference, please do let me know, and I make sure I share it accordingly. But that's fantastic. I'm sure that a lot of people have learned a lot of things, and that innovation is unstoppable in Luxembourg, also because of that. So fantastic. Next topic, which is dear to my heart, and I had the great privilege to be part and see it for myself. But tell us a bit about LHoFT Luxembourg, what it is about. We talked about it very briefly before, but what is the main goal? And also tell me a little bit about how you have embedded that platform to be also a platform for young people, for entrepreneurship, for mentorship, for hackathons, all of these amazing topics that are coming up more and more and more. You have hosted all of these within your structure in Luxembourg City at the LHoFT. So tell us a bit about LHoFT, and how can one get involved? Is it something people just come in, get information? Do you get a membership? Is it like a club? How does it work? And tell us about it.
Okay, sure. I mean, the initiative was largely driven by Minister Gramegna, where, quite rightly, he looked around the world and saw that there was this huge buzz around this thing called Fintech. I must admit, I personally detest that word. And he said, why isn't this really happening in Luxembourg? We're a big finance center. We don't seem to have this fintech thing. So he decided on this strategic initiative that we need to do something in Luxembourg about this. And as I said, this is where LFF, or Luxembourg for Finance, were tasked to come up with a plan. I worked with Luxembourg for Finance, and the LHoFT was born. And really, I mean, the key elements to the LHoFT are, one is it's a genuine collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. I have 19 board members, which is a lot. Pierre is a very, very proactive chairman, Pierre Gramegna, the Minister of Finance. Alongside him, I have the Ministry of State, the Ministry of Economy, I have the Chamber of Commerce, I have the finance associations, I have Luxembourg for Finance, sort of representing more the sort of public sector broadly. And then I have 13 private sector CEOs and managing directors from the finance institutions. And we're all working together. All of them are heavily engaged in the work that we do. We can call upon them, we can work with them. They participate in all of our events to really sort of drive digitalization as a core pillar for the future of Luxembourg financial services, alongside, say, green and the fund sector, etc. Digital cannot be ignored because the world is changing, right? So our focus is around that. How can we do that? And we work on various strategic pillars to make that happen. Now, I mean, rather than go through each and every one of them, I mean, ecosystem development is key, bringing community together. Projects we work on as well to develop sort of bigger utilities and value propositions for Luxembourg. But I think one of the core ones, which I think worth talking about, is education. As you mentioned, education is the foundation to me of the advancement of Europe as a whole historically. It's what really made Europe lead the world. And my broader concern is that education in Europe is generally broken, that it's not really fit for purpose anymore. That I can't understand why my children are being taught the same things, but more ridiculously in the same way that I was 40 years ago at school. It's not right. It's insane to me. I mean, the last major education reform in Luxembourg was in 1975, right? That's when I was born. I mean, it's not moving forward fast enough while the world continues to evolve at a rapid pace. So we try and do what we can do within that sphere. I mean, I'm not going to, although I am personally trying to look at setting up a new private school in Luxembourg called the Green School, which is an enterprise that's based out in Bali and in New Zealand. I hope to be able to bring them to Luxembourg. But, you know, we work within our remit. So we look to provide education from young to old to people that are, you know, retired from right from 3-5-year-olds. We collaborate with various entities to help them sort of work within the environment that we're living in, that digital environment, using digital tools and educating them about coding, educating them about technology leadership, educating them about trends that are occurring and new ways of working on projects, you know, agile methodologies, etc., to equip them with the skills that they require in this modern world. We do this in a variety of different forms. Obviously, during COVID, we switched very heavily to doing all this via digital webinar channels. We run like 100 or so webinars now since last March, with, you know, thousands of attendees from all over the world, which has been very gratifying for us. Another way we do this is through our boot camps, and the one that you were talking about, Catapult Inclusion Africa. We're about to run the latest edition in about 2 weeks' time. We've had about 160 plus applications. But what some people forget about Luxembourg as a big finance center, they focus on investment banking, on fund management, on insurance, private equity. But Luxembourg is also the biggest microfinance center in Europe. And, you know, the ability to, and now with a broader focus on the SDGs within Luxembourg and green finance, we've always looked to highlight that microfinance SDG side, sustainability side. Since the beginning of the LHoFT, we've now run 3 programs on inclusion, each one better and better. The alumni that have come out of these programs, most of which are coming from Africa. The program has been sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Development in Luxembourg, who I believe are very pleased with the outcomes, because these firms then go on to really make a difference, right? They help to improve inclusivity, provide greater access to financial services within the continent of Africa, and it's great to see these companies thrive. Africa has a huge opportunity in terms of developing and using the latest digital tools in order to service all those unbanked people. And we like to do what we can to be a part of that, leveraging, again, this fantastic community in Luxembourg around the world of microfinance and sustainability.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, there's a lot of things I didn't know. So do count me in if you ever need anything within the educational space. You know, that is definitely where my pulse is kicking.
Sure.
I think it's fantastic. And I do agree that I think the times are over for our children to be sitting there like factory workers, doing the same, being categorized by age rather than by skill, and all doing the same thing. And, you know, it's really...
They're all bored. They're bored. School's boring. I mean, it's not engaging anymore, and because it doesn't cater for what our children are and the environment they're brought up in. I mean, the ludicrousness of a teacher standing in front of class with a whiteboard. I mean, maybe it's not a chalkboard anymore, but it's a whiteboard with a felt tip marker. In a world where all of our children are screen natives from the moment they're born, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's not engaging enough, and it's not preparing them for the world that they're going to grow up in and work in. You know?
I think also one of the good parts of Corona came out that it really dismantled this, that it really has shown that the educational system is not ready for innovation, and that it needs a lot of innovation happening in order to be equipped for today. So, well, definitely a topic we need to catch up on also after the recording. And there's definitely some introductions I need to do that would be very useful for you, of people that are already doing that in Barcelona and in Germany, who have incredible platforms, which could be definitely an inspiration as well. Kind of like to create that hybrid model, maybe then between the Bali and the Barcelona and Germany model, to see what fits best for Luxembourg as well, with our diversity, the different cultures we have, because we really have an incredible opportunity in Luxembourg just because we are so diverse. And you know, definitely one head of a pot doesn't fit every pot. Certainly not also with different learning difficulties such as dyslexia and all of these things, where Luxembourg as well is still lacking behind. And my children are also very dyslexic. So count me in with whatever you need for that, with great pleasure. We have run out of time, big time. I could talk with you forever. I think this was really, really useful and very interesting. And a lot of people are going to learn a lot of things. But I think this will just increase the thirst for more, to see what is Nasir up to. So I make sure that I put every information relevant to you, to everything you have been talking about, below the video, so people can check out all of that, and also how they can contact you at the LHoFT and yeah, get involved if they want to. So Nasir, before I let you go, we are in turbulent times still, but very innovative times. The biggest inspirations and creations have come out of crisis, and we are seeing that as well now. So tell us, what, in a nutshell, is there a book, is there a podcast, is there a quote, something that keeps you going, something that you hold on to, where you say, this is kind of like my thing to go to, and that is what has inspired me to be where I am today, or has kind of like triggered all of this, where people could be like, I want to be like Nasir, specifically the young students listening to this, and where they can be like, okay, I will also do that, and then see where it takes me.
There's a number of things that inspire us all, I think. I mean, I do have a favorite quote from John F. Kennedy, which he gave in Berlin about change and how to embrace it. But I think the culmination of everything for me that drives me forward was about 11 years ago at business school, when I entered business school. I was asked to write my own obituary. What will my obituary say? What will I be remembered for? And I find that incredibly insightful. I asked that question of every person I've interviewed for the past 5 years, because an obituary has meaning. What is your legacy on this planet? What are you going to be remembered for? And I believe that that is what drives me forward, is the thought of the legacy I leave on this planet. And I believe that it should be something, an activity everyone should try and do. What are you going to be remembered for? Rather than looking forward and thinking more selfishly, where will you be in 5-10 years' time? Think about what you will leave on this planet. And I guess that's the core driver of my life.
Wow, that is beautiful. For the people listening to this on Apple Podcasts will not see how shiny my eyes are now, because I completely agree with you. And it's totally what I'm thinking too. I even go one step further. And one of my mottos is that I treat everything comes to work and privately as if I were to stay, and see where that brings me as well, also for the environment and all of these things. But I really like that thought of, what is my legacy? What do I leave behind? Specifically, as you have kids, I have kids, and you know, we're really there to hopefully leave this world in a better place and shape than what it was when we were born, because that is the right thing to do. So I think it's fantastic. Wow, amazing way to finish this. So thank you so much, Nasir, for your time. I make sure everything is available for everyone below, and we talk offline more for sure. And yeah, cannot thank you enough. For everyone listening in, please subscribe, share, and rate and comment. Just like that, will we be able to reach a wider audience globally. We have been the first rated podcast in Luxembourg and in Germany for education, for self-development. We have been in Japan, we have been in Brazil, we have been in the US, we have been in Russia. So please share the love so that people can get to know amazing people such as Nasir. And until we meet again, dear Nasir, thank you so much.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Tessy.
Thank you.